Hello, I'm Joey Haskins, and welcome back to You've Never Seen, in which I showcase a movie you've probably never seen before. It was just a little over a year ago that I did my video for A Hard Day's Night. But if you don't remember, A Hard Day's Night is the first film that would star the band The Beatles, mainly chronicling a day in the life of the worldwide sensation. But it would also be the beginning of a 3-picture deal that the group had signed for United Artists. A Hard Day's Night was made with little to no budget and was very successful. And that's partially due to the fact that the film let the Beatles be themselves. They weren't the best actors, but it didn't matter. They were charming enough to carry the film. Their second film, Help, would be made for almost 3 times the amount it took to make A Hard Day's Night, and they had considerably less control on that film. It's much more plot-based than the other film, and the band feels restrained in their performances most of the time. They were unhappy with their experience on the film and weren't looking forward to fulfilling their mandatory third one. That is, until the idea of doing an animated film was placed on the table. It wasn't the first time the band had been animated. They had their own cartoon show in 1965, but this new film could complete their contract without having to do much. And what's more, this third film would not only be widely acclaimed, but would change the landscape of animation. So, let's set sail to the sun and into the sea of green as we travel beneath the waves to look at Yellow Submarine. Yellow Submarine is directed by George Dunning, who was a producer on that Beatles cartoon I mentioned. He oversaw most of the project with over 200 animators and over the course of 11 months. The cast would include 6 actors, none of which were the Beatles, playing multiple roles. And much like the other Beatles movies, while it is a story, it's mostly just a vehicle to provide set pieces and visuals to the Beatles songs, of which there are many in the film. The film itself is about a place called Pepperland, deep beneath the sea that thrives on music, which is suddenly attacked by the ultra music haters, the Blue Meanies. And they've got everything to beat out the music. From weapons, to giants with apples, to feral beasts, to loud clowns, and of course, a giant destructive flying glove. In order to combat the meanies, an elder named Fred mans the titular Yellow Submarine to find people whose music overpowers them, eventually coming across the Beatles, who are of course John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. The Fab Four will need to travel through the seas of time, science, monsters, nothing, and holes to get back to Pepperland and save the day. Although it isn't as world-renowned as A Hard Day's Night is, Yellow Submarine is very beloved, especially in the world of animation. The film does not look like it came out in 1968, and the film is way more thought-provoking than you'd think. While A Hard Day's Night uses methods from the French New Wave and Help is made like a Bond film, Yellow Submarine is artsy. The kind of artsy where you need to think about what you just watched. And it's filled with beautiful music sequences that employ various animation styles. The Nowhere Man sequence is made on a completely white backdrop. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds uses rotoscope methods. And the sequence for Only a Northern Song is a psychedelic trip unlike anything you have ever seen. No animated film that came before Yellow Submarine looked like this, nor since really. I'd like to see somebody try and remake this with AI. It's also had its impact on other animation styles that came afterwards, like Monty Python and Schoolhouse Rock, and it even inspired the fellows at Pixar in their animation. It's a complex movie that elevated the world of animation to a different level. But of course, underneath all that, it's still a great story. One that's easy for children to get into. I should know, I was one of those kids. I grew up watching Yellow Submarine, and although I did love its story as a kid, as an adult, and as someone who is much more appreciative of film as an art form, it doesn't seem crazy to say Yellow Submarine is a masterpiece in its own right. So much so that there was even supposed to be a remake of it. Remember that Polar Express movie Robert Zemeckis made? Well, the Yellow Submarine remake would have looked like that, using motion capture animation and made alongside Walt Disney Pictures. The thing was, that whole animation process never really caught on in film, so the project was scrapped. And it honestly might be for the best. Even if it would have been another marvel in the world of animation, it could also have been a way to cash in on the popularity of the Beatles and of the movie, which is nowadays more niche. And it's also niche because you can't really find it anywhere, as far as streaming is concerned. This film, along with Help, can be bought on iTunes or on a physical disc, but not anywhere else. But go out and find it. It is well worth it for the adults and a fun adventure for the kids. You can check out Yellow Submarine at your local library. With Weston Media Center, I'm Joey Haskins, and I'll see you all next time.